This is ACOFAE. Laura Marie and Jessica Marie proudly present A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, a podcast. Fair warning, everything the hosts say is explicit, full of spoilers and adult content and shall not be used against them. They have opinions. Let's try not to drag anyone for expressing themselves and just have fun for an hour. We all deserve it.
This episode contains spoilers from ACOMAF and Book of Night, with mentions of the Contemporary Mythos series, AGoR series, and Twilight. For full list, please see show notes. There are also discussions surrounding sexual assault, alcoholism, and suicide.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to A Court of Fandoms and Exploration, your weekly deep dive into the YA literature and fandoms that we love. I'm Laura Marie.
And I'm Jessica Marie.
And today we are discussing A Touch of Ruin and A Game of Retribution. These are both by Scarlett St. Clair.
And we received A Game of Retribution as an ARC, so thank you to Sourcebooks for that. We very much appreciate that.
And of course, just because we were given A Game of Retribution, thank you, does not mean that that influences anything that we have to say at all. As always, our opinions are our own and not influenced. However, there is something that we want to point out.
I think it's important to note that prior to this episode, and we wanted to give transparency like we typically do, I typically don't read author's notes unless it's like somebody I absolutely like have tattooed on my arm, love. But Laura does. So I think it's important to share the author's note for A Game of Retribution so you could kind of understand maybe some difficulty that we have as we like go on to record and like discuss this episode a little bit further. So author's note from Scarlett St. Clair from A Game of Retribution. Here I go. I'm sorry. Feel free to fast forward, y'all. If you have followed me for any length of time, you know I began the Hades series because of my readers. Though I always felt that Hades was up to something in time he wasn't with Persephone in the main series. I especially knew this to be true during the events of A Touch of Ruin, but I am not even sure I expected what was going to unfold in Retribution. This book was a bitch to say the least. I fought hard against writing it, and I think there was an element of dread because I was returning to a book that dealt heavily with grief, and I am only a year into my own journey with grief. I dreaded facing the feelings, dredging them up, and I dreaded the feedback too. I was afraid people would compare Hades and Persephone, and once again, elevate his character above hers. And as we all know how much I identify with my girl. I have a soapbox that I like to stand on when people compare the two, and I'm going to use it now because this is important to me. And because it's important to me, I know it's important to the readers, you. There is no comparison between Hades and Persephone. There is no elevating one over the other. The foundation I am laying is one of equal partnership, and these books are meant to illustrate their progress towards that. Hades lives in a very big world. He is an immortal god who has existed for thousands of lifetimes. The challenges he faces day to day look very different from Persephone, whose world is so much smaller. I am so dismayed when I see people, women especially, bash Persephone while they glorify Hades. He has just as many issues to work through, no matter how much he professes his love to Persephone. So I just ask you to instead consider their backgrounds and celebrate their differences. I ask you to remember how hard it is to face loss and to grieve. And if you cannot remember, then imagine. If you do not wish to imagine, then do not judge, because until you've gone through it, there is nothing to say. With those words, and then I'm going to wrap here because she talks about some of the plot from A Game of Retribution. End scene.
That author's note makes me personally, this is my personal opinion, just me, makes me a little bit uncomfortable, right? It is kind of setting like boundaries, like read this book, but it is my preference that you do X, Y, and Z when you read it. And that just makes me feel a little bit of ick. And I do feel like if I hadn't have read that author's note, which I read because when I was glancing at it, I saw soapbox at the end and I was like, ooh, I wonder what this is about. You know, that's me. But if I hadn't have read it, then I would feel, I think, a little bit different than I do about this book. So that is a just interesting little perspective that I think is important to acknowledge.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that's a different discussion to be had of should authors set parameters for readers to reading their content. But again, that's not what this episode is. But I think it was just important for us to share as we go into discussing both A Touch of Ruin and Retribution moving forward, and understanding that it, like I said, it might be a little bit difficult because we're trying to honor the author's notes, but understanding that like every reader is going to have a different experience and different opinion when it comes to the content that they're reading.
Absolutely. And everybody experiences everything differently. So it's just a little, it's just a little thing, a little disclaimer. Okay. So I think maybe the best way to start off this series is to talk about some things that we really love. So what are some things that we really, really love here? Let's be clear, both books. We're talking about both books as if they are one.
And we'll try to specify when we're talking about certain plot points or different like things, which one we're referring to. But what we learned, both of us, is that this was very much it seemed like carbon copies of the same book, which would make sense because Retribution is exactly A Touch of Ruin, but in Hades' POV.
And in Hades' POV, Hades has a lot that goes on that we just didn't see in A Touch of Ruin, and that was something that I really enjoyed. I really, really enjoyed all of the plot that we get with Hades. I mean, like spoilers, but that's what we're here for, right? We get the labors. We have the labors. We have the Grey Sisters. Medusa's thrown in there. We've got a war coming up. We've got Dionysus. We've got assassins. We have the Fates. Hades visits the Fates several times. And then we have like everything that's going on with Hera and Theseus. All of that. More of that, please.
So much of it. And I mean, I think that's a good jumping point because we already know we have a lot of the returning characters from A Touch of Darkness. You have Persephone and Hecate, obviously Hades. You have some of Persephone's friends, Alexa, Sybil, Laoki. I wouldn't say she's a friend at all. Apollo comes back. You have Hermes. We love Hermes. But the plot really stems in a Retribution. It really stems from Hades. Everybody knows Hades' weakness now, and it's Persephone. So what do we do? We want to focus on, anybody's weakness. So what does, and you said this well, we know that at the end of A Touch of Ruin, a war is coming. So now when you're starting Retribution, you know that there's a war coming, and there's things that lead up to where we go to the end, but how we get to the war, who the players might be involved, what those players might need. That main player is Hera. She wants to overthrow Zeus. And
again. This is like her, second or third time to try to overthrow Zeus? Yeah, I love it. She's like, hey, Hades, help me overthrow Zeus. And Hades is like, nah. No.
We went through this again.
How about no? Get out of here. But Hera is just like, oh, okay, you want to say no? All right, but what do you want to do with Persephone besides have sex with her? And he's like, I want to marry her. It's like, well, what am I? The goddess of. So then we get blackmail and we get massive amounts of plot. Here's the thing. I very much am here for a female-led revolution, right? Okay, fine with that. I do not like that Hera is kind of using Persephone in this way, just to kind of blackmail kind of situation. But that is kind of addressed in a throwaway line. They were like, yeah, well that's how gods do it. Gods.
This is a god's.
Yeah, this is God's game. Yeah, that is how we play. I think it's in reference to how do we say we're sorry and lovers say it a different way. But I do appreciate that plot point. There are actually, thinking about it, several plot points that I do appreciate.
Well, that was the main one because that brings us from start to finish. Because like you said, you have the labors, you have, and they're sprinkled in, which is, I like it. I like it. There are things that I feel like I still learn with Greek mythology because so often we're either with the Hades and Persephone retelling like we are here, but then you have like Dionysus and like Hera with Theseus. Like I'm sure that like happened at some point. Or Ariadne, I didn't realize, is the one who helped Theseus in the labyrinth with the Minotaur. Like there are things that like I know parts of Greek mythology, but I forget how everything is intertwined. And even after taking a Greek mythology class, I was just like, oh, that's right, you know, which is whatever. But I liked when three of the laborers were the Nemean lion, the boar, and the Cretan bull. It reminded me of Disney's Hercules when they had the sketches on the vases, and Hercules was just defeating them all. I'm just gonna watch that after this, actually.
So, okay, we start off Retribution with the horse races, right? The horse races and the introduction of a false oracle, like prophet kind of situation, and the introduction of us, the readers, to relics. And relics are just like the sticking point, really, for the whole plot. So relics are like what? Like objects imbued with like divine...
Yeah, and they're to be used if you're not necessarily like a magical god, because like the Magi's use it, or some people with like quote unquote seeing like seers, but not actual seers. They would need the relic to kind of be more, I guess, amplify that trait.
So the relics are kind of the plot point that give us the introduction of Hades as like the rich one, right? We get iniquity, and we get all of that kind of plot points, and then we get Dionysus who likes to buy relics and monsters, and then we learn about the like black market, about the monster trade, and how we learn about Medusa that way. There's just a lot going on here that it makes me uncomfortable to say, but I will say that, and this is really just because of the author's note, but Hades' plot is so heavy and so necessary to, I think, where the story would go, because it lays the foundation for like the war and the betrayals and everything, that when Hades comes back from the labors and he has killed a Hydra and he's killed the birds, and then he beat the shit out of Hercules, when he comes back and Persephone is like, well, where were you? And when Hades is just like, well, shit, I forgot about your thing. Me, the reader, is also like, shit, Persephone, he was really busy. You have no idea. Like, he had to do all of this other stuff. But then that is the perfect opportunity for them to communicate. And that is our big criticism, because they don't.
Well, and the whole miscommunication trope, I think, like from start to finish in both books, is so heavy, where you understand that, like, sometimes in like whatever it is you're reading, if there's a miscommunication trope, sometimes it's like, oh, you know, like this would have been so much different. But because it's just like, it almost feels like the miscommunication trope is a plot within itself, because all you keep screaming at both characters, not just one or the other, at both of them.
Both. Equal opportunity here.
Yeah. Is, oh my God, just talk. Both of you talk. You both keep saying that you're each other's equals, that you consider yourselves as partners. It's, and it's one of the things that Persephone says. She goes, whatchamacallit, Hades says, well, you didn't ask, in one of their many arguments. And she says, these are not questions that you would just like sit down and ask. Like, sometimes you would think it would be part of an organic conversation, which I don't disagree with her in that instant, because Laura and I, we were talking before, saying like, how would you feel if somebody goes, and then what happened? And then what happened? Trying to take thousands of years of information in one sitting, or like, you don't want to be kind of feel like you're nagged for questions or conversations. It should be part of an organic conversation, which is a frustration that she admittedly has. They both have so many issues, but like Laura said, these are great opportunities to be like, oh, okay, here's what's going on. And on top of all the other things, just like the blackmail or her writing her articles. What was there, an ultimatum? He says at one point, and that was a great, and she just looked away. That was a great opportunity to be like, well, now that you said it.
Yes,
because,
there is.
Yeah, because, and obviously, like, he already had it in the back of his head because the Cal guy, Cal Stavros, who oversaw
at the races,
who oversaw the company that, Persephone writes for, he goes, hey, I want this thing from you. And he goes, absolutely not. You're not getting shit from me. He values his relationship with Persephone and their privacy so much. So what does he do? He goes to Persephone and blackmails her. Tell me that wouldn't have been the first thing that I went home. Be like, listen to this motherfucker. I don't want you to handle it. I'm handling it. But just to have on your radar.
Yeah, I don't understand the fact that each of them want each other to be a partner and to be, as you say, like equal. Nobody does any of the work about it. All they do is fuck. Yeah, that noise. That's all they do. And the thing about it, and Scarlet, I said this to you, Scarlet is clever about this. She has made it so that Hades and Persephone have like full on fucking conversations while they are just like, well, he is balls deep in her, because I swear that's just, yeah. But it makes it easy to skip if you're reading it like the second time, the spice, because you can just look for the dialogue cues. And if it's not Make Me Come or Hades, then it's an actual conversation that they're having. So it's easy to do that. I just am uncomfortable with the constant fucking. So like, Jess, you were saying, if this is a story that has become like spice with plot, that's fine. But like, it kind of started off with like plot with a little spice. So like, that's also fine. I just, you know, that's
when
where
you
I'm
started
at.
off with like one thing and you had it's
I know
it's what happened to the original plot of the movie. And I told you, I was like, if I want smut, like I can give off. I think everybody can be like, let's go to Smutty Talk. Let's see what we want. And there could have been a shift. And again, that's fine. I think we just went into it thinking one thing and didn't necessarily get that until we got to Retribution, with my asterisk being that there's the same amount of smut from, I won't say smut, I'll say like spice, smut. I guess it could be used interchangeably.
Yeah, I'd say I would say spicy.
I like the spice. That's fine. I have no critique.
It's good spice.
It's good spice. I'm not critiquing that, but I feel like when I was expecting a Hades POV, I thought I was going to get like more insight to the POV and some aspects of it. But I felt like a lot of times I was like, wait, I did just read this chapter. It came directly from, like, I just didn't feel like it might have been value added. I didn't I was still getting the same thing. That's just my opinion. But then once I realized that was consistently happening and like, on the last quarter of the book, that's when I was like, I'm just going to skip over some of these scenes because I already knew where the conversation was going. I wasn't getting anything different from it.
So I would like to talk about something that still bothers me. It bothers me. It is Persephone agreeing to not write about Apollo, right? So like, and I have it here. And Hades is like, you can't save everyone, my darling. And she's like, I'm not trying to save everyone, just the ones who are wronged by gods because Apollo hurt Sybil. They preach trust, right? They preach trust. And she says the words. She says she won't. I highlighted that. I go, okay, it wasn't like this, because she comes back later and she goes, I didn't agree to that. No, you did. I fucking highlighted it. Yeah, she did. And then she just gets drunk with her friends and just does it anyway.
Not only did she do it anyway, because it would have been one thing if she just like got drunk and typed it out and like, like a Dear Diary entry. She fucking drunk emailed it to her boss.
Yeah. And she's a bad friend for doing that. Sybil did not want her to do that. Like, they were writing they were just like putting it out there, like a journal kind of situation, right? Like nobody was expecting her to like send it to her editor, especially when Sybil said like, don't do this. And she promised Hades not to do this. And it was just, and the other part why I'm bringing this up is that she breaks her promise and she writes the article. And then she is surprised when everything that Hades said would happen happens. And then she has this like, I mean, I know she has a lot of feelings in the bottom of her stomach. I know she has a lot of warm feelings there. But this one is described as like a pit. So she's waiting for Hades to
repercussions of her actions.
She's fucking stomping her foot and asking for attention because she did a thing and he didn't respond, and now she's like, about it. And she is self-aware enough to admit that. She does say like, what do I have to do to get his attention? But she's saying it in a bratty way. But
she's being petulant sometimes. Absolutely. Not to say that, like, I'm not saying that that's how she is every time, because I admittedly said there are certain things in here where I'm like, not only have I reacted that way, like, not only would I react that way, I have reacted that way. I'm not to say it's right or wrong, but, like, I know I could see where she's coming from in some of these things. Like, when Hades didn't tell her that he went to take care of his ex-girlfriend and put her up and get her a job, and then she was just like, oh, well, I didn't ever want you to find out. Well, I fucking did. Were you never going to tell me? I would have been pissed about that, too, because, of course, you're naturally going to think, are you hiding something? What is there to hide? If there's nothing there, why are you hiding this? That's immediately where my mind would go. Don't doubt your love for me. However, your actions are saying otherwise. And that's a big thing that they talk about in this book, or the actions.
Talk. I like how you say talk. Yeah. They scream that at each other over and over again.
And so they whatever. The words are said. Actions. And they're doing, and that's also pretty toxic, though, if you think about it. The constant throwing each other's words back at I understand where it's like receipts, like actions, consequences. You said this. How does it feel, me saying it right back at you? Didn't you just say this? I understand it. Doesn't mean it's healthy. As regularly as they do it.
Yeah, no, they are not. Hot take. They're not healthy. They're a very incredibly toxic relationship. Damn. I completely agree with you about Laethy. Like, oh my God. Just absolutely unacceptable. However,
I feel like that's this whole conversation. We're like,
I know.
Yes, but on the flip side, also, like, we're pretty devil's advocate with, like, on this hand, on the other hand.
I do. Here's the thing. It is not an excuse. And like Hecate says, it's not an excuse. And like all praise to Hecate because like absolutely. But here's the thing that I as a reader need to remember is that Persephone is like 20, 22.
She's like in her mid-20s now. She graduated. She's doing her thing.
Okay. Hades is like infinite.
Yeah.
He has lived so fucking long that it is understandable to me that he would not want to disclose these like things from his past right away, right? Because Persephone, let's be really honest here, is not a stable like kind of person. She's pretty volatile. She's all over the place. Love that for her. We love an emotional, like 20-year-old learning her powers. We like that. I'm not.
But he also throws it back at her.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But this is the toxic thing So Hades. Yeah. Because Hades also says that he was sorry when he wasn't there with like Lexa and everything. He didn't understand that death would be different, for Persephone because he has always treated it like this one thing because that is what it's always been for him. Hades has this kind of mindset too, and I'm bringing this up because again, when Persephone is like, well, reassure me because like, what if the fates never put us together? Would you still want me if there weren't any fates? And Hades is just like, what the fuck are you on? Like the fates are like this eternal thing. They are, so we are. That is just like what.
And Hecate says, like, she was literally, they're both very insecure in their relationships. And that's like just a reflection of like their own insecurities with themselves. And I understand that. And I understand all of that. But Hecate even says, like, hello, like, she was literally made for you by the fates. Demeter wanted a kid, even though she hated you so much. And the fates said, okay, bet. But guess what? We're making her Hades' soulmate because you hate him so much. Like, she was literally made for Hades. But they have their own insecurities that they have to, like, figure it out, because they're still not figured out by the end of both of these books. They just know that they love each other and they fuck each other.
Yeah, and they talk during their fucking. Okay, so Persephone is famous now. She doesn't want to be famous.
She doesn't want her fame to be known for his lover. She wants her own notoriety.
Yes, which I understand. I do not understand her not realizing that her status would change, that people would notice her, that like things would be like kind of weird. She's like an investigative journalist. Like you're not ignorant to like what happens. I don't know. That aspect of it bothered me. Where she was like, I don't want to take a driver. I want to walk, and like, please don't take pictures of me. Meh. I
want to go through the front entrance.
Yeah. Okay.
I want to be normal. I'm sorry if I earned anything. I love a secret entrance. I don't want to go through the main entrance. Bye. Go into even the underground garage. She could have easily just had Antony drop her off in the underground garage, and she could have taken the elevator up. That's still a normal person thing too.
It's just these little things that bother me that just compound so much that by the end of it, I'm just like, I really love Hecate.
I love Hecate, but you know what? That's a Hecate. Just overall, she is like the perfect, like, okay. Some people loved Doctor Strange too. I think it should have been called Scarlet Witch and the Multiverse of Madness, or Wanda Maximoff, however you want to say. I think it's a Wanda movie. It's a Scarlet Witch movie. I feel like Hecate was Wanda. She was the saving grace, and she was the voice of reason for both parties. She called both of them out. Like, she was not favoring one or the other. She was just so good. She was telling Persephone, look, he has lived thousands of lives. You have to understand where his perspective is coming from. At the same time, Hades will be broody, and she's like, you understand death for thousands of years. She is in her 20s, and you're being a shitty boyfriend. And then when he would try to say something, she would be like, you know what? Fuck you. Fuck you. No, we're not playing this. And you're an alcoholic. So, like, get your shit together. Both of you are going to fuck up. And it's important that both of you recognize that you also have to be willing to forgive each other, because you're both are going to be in a shitty place time and time again. It's inevitable.
Perfect segue. So they are talking. They're all talking. So Persephone has written about Apollo. Persephone has made the news guy, a deal. She's
Cal?
like Cal. She's like dealt with Cal, right? She's like dealing with Dimitri.
Oh no, Cal, she didn't. Hades stopped her when he was at the club or whatever, but Dimitri's her direct boss.
But, like, with Cal, she was like, yeah, your face is going to scar. Fuck you. Like, Hades, transported him into things. Like, you've been, yeah. And then this whole thing with Lexa, right? This whole thing with Lexa happens. So, like, Lexa gets hit by a car, and she's in the hospital, and
what they believe is an accident.
Yeah, and after some shit happens, and her boyfriend Jason is like really terrible to Persephone, and Persephone begs Hades, and Hades says no, and he like tells her why, but he doesn't tell her enough, not nearly enough about what is going to happen. But then Persephone goes and makes a deal with Apollo, right? Like behind his back again, and like makes a deal with Apollo to like be his friend, which that part is kind of cute, but to heal. But then there's the whole like dialogue about how, like, Apollo only heals physical, he doesn't heal mental. But then when you were talking about like hurting each other. So at that point, Hades and Persephone are like fighting, right? And they're so insecure about everything. And like, it's all this back and forth and not telling anybody anything. And there's all of this like background investigation going on that Hades is doing. But Hades and Persephone are like, I'm sorry. Like, you know, we are both hurt. You know, I hurt you and then you hurt me. So now we're even. And Hades is like, no, like that's how gods play. Like we're lovers. We have to be like, you know, forgiveness and time. And we have to be okay being angry with each other.
Which I liked.
Yeah.
I do like and respect. He's like, she's like, I don't want to be angry. I don't want to be upset with you. And he's like, and you, but like, that's life. Like, I know that we're going to get past it, but that doesn't change our feelings of being like our emotions. And I like that. It's like, we have to feel our feelings. That doesn't mean we want to, but like they're there. It is what it is. We have to work through this.
And the first time that Persephone deals with Apollo in the underworld, when she's, you know, she gets there and she's like, you know, you want to treat me as an equal, but you called this meeting, you didn't include me, and you had Hades like, or Hermes like babysit me, like fuck you, like make a deal with me. Like I do like and appreciate that. But also another part of me is like mentally process what he did. He gave a favor. Like, do you understand? Like a favor. Like, stop talking.
And she knows that it's not like one of those things that she doesn't know what a favor is. She knows It's not like as much as like we try to portray, and she's tried to be portrayed as immortal in certain instances. She knows her mother is a god. She's like is a goddess. She is a goddess. She knows what it means to have these favors and to give a favor. It's just like, honey, you might be book smart, but like,
it's like stop talking. Like stop talking. Like stop. Like please. Like you're just like but I feel that way a few times. I want Medusa. I want this story with Medusa. So I want this war, right? Like,
yeah, I do. I also, Ariadne, I didn't like I saw her name and I was like, Hoseb. But I want to know more. I like that she was like, when they were trying to use me to try to find Medusa, I did not want to put that woman through another thing, because I think people forget about the history of Medusa. With like just the character in general. Everybody knows her. Like a lot of people know her as like, oh, you look at her, you turn to stone. But like she as like, you know, this I think people forget that Medusa, trigger warning, sexual assault, was like raped. And then she was the one who was victimized and the men continued to get away with it. So I want to know more of Medusa's story, or how it's going to be written in the series, because Ariadne is a detective here. You know, like everybody has like, you know, different pulls and different backgrounds. You know, like we have Persephone, she's a journalist, you know. So I want more of her. I want to know her background, and I want her to be like, I just love, I want more Medusa stories in general, for us to see the actual background of Medusa, kind of like with the first Maleficent, that people don't realize how and why Maleficent came to be.
Now you got me thinking about it. Okay, so Theseus and Hera are the ones behind the war, and they want to collect relics and monsters to arm the demigods and mortals, to
rise up against the Olympians.
Yeah, to rise up and overthrow the Olympians. So to do that,
they basically want to do what the Olympians did to the Titans.
Yes. So to do that, they have to figure out how to like kill gods. So that is why Hera started the trials, the labors with Hades. So the first one with the Hydra, with the venom, and then the birds, and then the thing, they figured out, right, how to kill divine beings. And that is proven when the Grey, I don't know how to say it because I didn't have the audiobook, but it's like the Grey sisters that share the eye and the tooth. They are found dead because they had been like purchased, right, by Dionysus and his like little monster empire, but they had been found dead. So Theseus like is behind all of that.
Who he doesn't want. He's involved with the mortal like they call him the triad, but it's kind of like their ox kind of thing. And you later find out later in the book, he's like, I need you to wipe my name from like any affiliation you have with me, because he knows there's going to be this rising, because he's part of it. He's leading it.
Yeah, because he's part of it and he's leading it. And something that is really interesting here is that they do say that demigods are a problem, because there isn't like an exact count of how many of them
because
there
everyone's
are.
fucking around.
Yeah, and there isn't like a good way to figure out like what their powers are, because they all like manifest differently. There is a little plot point in here that I want to point out that isn't resolved that bothers the shit out of me, and that would be Felix. Felix is on page 169. Felix is just being tortured in Tartarus, and he starts threatening Persephone. And he's like, you motherfucker, I'll kill you and your lover. And Hades is like, what did you say? And he's like, that's right. I know about your lover, the blonde. She takes up most of your time and your thoughts. The point being that like he is so deep in Tartarus that there is absolutely no way that he would be able to know any of that information.
Or should be. And that's why Hades was like, he asked, I think it was Thanatos or Ilias. He goes, how the hell does he know about there is... The second you get into that Tartarus border, nothing should be passed here.
Yeah, and it is just really, really wild. That is just not brought up, like, again. And it's just like, I don't know. It's I don't know.
My only note for that says, agrees with this torture method.
Haha.
Because he goes, each time Hades took aim with another second, was another second spent wondering if this blow would be his last. It was it was the same horrible agony the man had put his victims through. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm sorry. I'm like, oh, you did X, Y, and Z to this person? That is your torture method.
So we didn't really talk about the first labor. The first labor that Hades has to do is he has to go kill Briareus, which is very sad. He was a many-headed like monster or anything that helped.
Nice.
He was really nice, and he helped defeat Hera in the first uprising. So that's why she wanted him like dead, which is like really shitty and really sad. And that whole thing is really sad. But he goes to the Fates, right? Hades does, and he's like, what is it going to cost me to kill this guy? And he's like, it's going to be like another like giant like soul.
I thought it was going to be Lexa.
Yeah, so did I. And I do really love here, though, that Hades does go and confirm. Because Hades, after Lexa, Hades goes and is like, yo, was that me? Did I do that? Is that what this is?
Am I causing my love strife?
Yeah,
right
and he
now?
goes, and do not fret, good counselor, said Clotho. Your bargain with Briareus, said, I can't say her name, I'm not going to, will only ruin your life. So I like that a lot. Like, not only is Hades, like, not responsible for that at all, like, has no guilt on that, but the Fates themselves say, like, yeah, no, but the thing that's going to happen, though, is going to fuck your world up. So, like, be ready for that. And I did like that, because we are all assuming that we are getting to a war at some point. So I like the tension, I do like the tension. Do I like that he beat the shit out of Hercules? No. I just didn't like that. It was very Fight Club to me, and I was just like, meh. Didn't need the visual, but
What I was gonna ask, or maybe just comment on. So basically, obviously there was such a nice exchange. Hera's like, I need you to kill Briareus, and Hades, he doesn't even kill him. He was just like, it's my time. It's ready to go. Let's have one last drink together. He was so nice about it. But Hera is like, she's having everybody else do that. She doesn't have to lift a finger. She has Hades doing all her dirty work, who are, she's basically thinking like, who are the people that I'm up against? Okay, well, I don't want to have to kill Hydra. I'll make Hades do that. I don't want to have to kill this. And then, like, even at the end of the book, whatever that thing was, begins with an O. He came back because he was the thing that defeated the Titans, who could have helped bring back the Titans, and they killed him. The monster I was referring to was Ophiotaurus. Sorry, we took us a moment there.
Okay, so the big quote here that I just looked at is make no mistake, my lady, I would burn for you, and then burn the world for you. And then the other one is like, Hades, what's your greatest weakness? And the answer is you. Those are the two like really big romantic things that are said here, I think, over and over and again.
Oh yeah, he'd burn the world. Anybody could burn the world for me. I love that.
Right? Like, damn.
Oh, but then, like, I love when Persephone gets into her powers because she's in the forest of despair, and she thinks she sees the vision. Well, she thinks she's seeing Hades and Laoki fucking, and then she's like, "You'd burn the world for me? I'll fucking ruin yours." And she like decimates everything in the underworld. I kind of love that shit.
That is my favorite part. That is my favorite book.
What that reminded me of? Doctor Strange 2 spoilers. When they're in the orchard. From the garnished orchard, that's what that reminds me of. It's all great, it's all pretty, and then, Wanda has her shit, and all of a sudden, she's like, "Oh, what gave it away?" And then everything just turns to like death. I loved that. That's exactly what I thought of.
Yeah, it is absolutely amazing. Absolutely my favorite part. I like that Hecate has to come and she like comforts her immediately and like, does the magic.
It's also like that female relationship, right? That's like, how we talk about in ACOFAE, where it's like more saving Feyre in that like despair moment to calm her down, to bring her back. Like that's that same like even Hades knew that he couldn't calm her. He's like, "I'm the last person she wants to talk to. See, like I am the reason of her despair, even though I didn't do anything visually, she believes I have right now." And Hecate's like, "It's fine. It's okay. My love, my sweet, my friend. Like, it's just breathe." Like, I like that. I like their friendship. I just wish Persephone listened to her more.
Lethe, I want to talk about her just a little bit more. And to do that, we have to talk about Demeter. I really dislike the toxic relationship between Demeter and her mom, but like I understand, like I get it.
Demeter and her mom, or you mean Persephone and her
Persephone
mom?
and her mom. Oh, sorry, Persephone and her mom. Like I understand the plot device. I understand what it is. I understand the trauma. Like I get it. That doesn't mean that I have to like it. I don't. But there's just so much like. Demeter's the one that freed Lethe from the tree, and she threatened her the whole time. She's also, behind Lethe, like taking her more kind of, to iniquity and everything that kind of happens there is because of Demeter. Yeah.
Well, and that's why I think when this all came to fruition and Laoki like admitted to it, Persephone was like, "I'm not going to fault you because I'm scared of shit from my mother too." So I get that. I'm just constantly thinking that Persephone's a better person than I am because fuck all that shit.
Fuck all that shit.
So whenever Hades is like, "Holy shit, like I don't deserve her," look, same, because that's not how I reacted either. Interesting though that Laoki's fear of Demeter is greater than her fear of Hades, because traditionally speaking, yeah, you have all these gods, but who are the big three? Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades. I'm sorry, what does the god of the afterlife want? I'm gonna side with him. Whatever he wants. I feel like I'd basically get like full immunity if I tell him everything. It's like, I'll tell you everything, but please, like, offer me protection for the rest of my life.
Yes. And as long as we're talking about gods. So Apollo has Persephone, like, judge a singing contest, and then he, like, has her in, like, she's in, like, that dress for that other thing that she has to do. The one that she gets, like, really drunk and, like, throws up everywhere and, like, skins her knees and, like, throws up everywhere. I know, right? It's like, Persephone. Would like to see some fan art of that dress.
The mesh with the gold. Yeah.
That sounds quite lovely. Would like to see. It's just the plot that is happening. Like so I do like that that Persephone does finally ask Hades, like, why don't you like Apollo? Why have you made it, like, so fucking weird this whole time? Like, you got out of bed when I first mentioned it, and, like, now. But now, on page 346 of a 441 book, Hades finally tells her, like, exactly what happened with Apollo, why there's bad blood, like, what is going on, like, all of that. And I appreciate the communication. I just, like... he says, like, I tend to want to forget that part of my life, Persephone, though it seemed to not to want to forget him. You know, just, like, stuff like that. It's like...
But that reminds me of, we're reading that really fun Greek mythology contemporary mythos series by Carly Spade. And they have a lot of, like, flashbacks with the gods there. And they openly say, like, that was a different part, not only a different part of my life, but a different timeline, like a different part of history in the world. Like, how things were then doesn't mean that's how they are now. And I like that part of the conversation and the dialogue that's happening. You just don't see, like, that's essentially what he's alluding to when he says that. But because there's no communication and there's no, like, discussions about it, how is she supposed to know? She's lived for 20-something years. Of course things were different when the gods, like, people glorified the gods as, in a way, like, religious figures and not just, and this is mentioned in the first book, A Touch of Darkness, more of celebrity figures.
Yeah, and, well, that... I have to remind myself that Persephone has only been, like, in the world or whatever for, like, 4 years. So, like, she...
Yeah.
So that is... Yeah, and that is where her empathy comes from, too, for, like, Hades' ex or whatever. But it is just really wild. I love her friendship with Hermes. Like, I really like Hermes. He's the comic relief that everybody needs. Does Hades have to have his dick out all the time when Hermes is around? I don't think so. I don't know why we need that detail.
Wait, but I didn't think it was intentional. I thought it was, like, Hermes with his, like, because he says it. He goes, you know, when he felt betrayed by Hermes and he's choking him in the elevator.
He's like, I imagine it differently. That was great.
I feel like when Hermes drops in, it's because he just kind of, without consent, wants his peek, you know? Like,
it's like, I don't know. Just, you know, there are some details here that I just felt could have been kind of skipped over in favor for more plot. But that is just my opinion because I like plot. For example, I understand the importance of the nude picture scenes. I get it. They're vulnerable. They're, you know, I get it. Could have skipped for me personally. No value added for me personally.
Right. No, I was going to, because I told you when I saw that, I didn't get anything from it except for, oh, this is like that scene in 50 Shades. Like, yeah. That's all that I remembered. I thought that, don't get me wrong, I think that scene is really cute in 50 Shades. I think it's great. It's for them. But because, again, A Game of Retribution is so, like, we get so much more plot in my opinion, and I think your opinion too, we get so much more plot in Retribution as opposed to Ruin that I just wanted more of that.
And we haven't even touched on, like, Helios and the cows.
Rosie!
Like, he was so happy.
He was so happy. And we already knew that Hecate named them all, and Hades was like, what the fuck ever. And then when Helios gets Rosie back, he's like, what about the rest? And he's like, for everything we fucking work through, you'll get more Rosies. Like, I don't know.
You'll get them back.
No, because I don't think you read A Game of Fate, but there's a whole, like, storyline about him taking the cows in A Game of Fate that he was only going to take a couple. He was only going to take, like, 7 or 8, something. But then he had to rush off and do something because of Persephone.
Oh, yeah, they mentioned that here, yeah.
Okay. And he's like, fuck it, I don't have time. And he just takes them all.
Yeah. Just like, that is also a reference, too, because he's like, Zeus, like, call the council, right?
Yes,
Zeus,
yes.
Like, the Grey sisters are dead. Like, call the council. Shit's going down. Like, you call the council for less. And he's like, those fucking cows.
Yeah, that's what it was the fucking cows. Helios was like, who took my cows? And Hades was like, I got shit to do.
Yeah.
Cows.
Well, and that goes to kind of what Demeter has said throughout this, like, there are no consequences for gods, right? Like the sun continued to shine, like, whatever. And then they do focus on how usually it's the women that are punished and not like the men got, all of that is valid. All of that is valid. Demeter is confronted twice, right? She's confronted privately with Persephone in A Touch of Ruin, and then she's confronted publicly with a united front in the underworld.
Yeah.
In the underworld. And the second one is where Persephone uses her powers and kind of like shakes Demeter up a little bit, which I thought was kind of great, because Hades specifically says, like, she felt Persephone's power building, but she didn't think it was a threat. And now she's really surprised. And
it brought her to her knees. Mm-hmm. But at which point Demeter tries to, like, I don't know if it was, you know how with, like, toxic parents, they try to be like, you're more like me than you realize, blah, blah. Like, she says that to Persephone. And I don't know if that's to shake her up or if it was just in reference to her powers, but I just feel like maybe we find that out more in Malice. I haven't read Malice yet, or, there's a touch of chaos that comes, which is I believe it's the dual POV with both Persephone and Hades. So it's not like two separate books, which is like good because I don't think we need two separate books for everything. I said it in our initial episode with like Neon Gods and A Touch of Darkness, and I kind of think that with this too. I'm sorry.
And with this too, we're almost at the end of this. So we have to talk about Lexa, because Lexa in the hospital with the car, Lexa has the deal with Apollo from Persephone. Lexa gets better physically. Lexa does not heal mentally. Lexa puts on a show of getting better, and then Lexa takes her life and then ends up in the underworld. And Persephone has a very quick exchange with her at the river. And this is like after, I believe, that they're officially engaged.
Yeah. He just proposed to her like on the horses and all that stuff. And then they were coming back. And Thanatos is like, I have to tell you some shit. We don't have time.
Yeah. And then they go, and it's a very sad exchange. And Persephone is like, I'll visit you every day because Lexa's memories are going to get erased so that she can heal. And, I'll visit you every day until we're best friends again. I don't know how I feel about that. I understand in this moment when Lexa still has like all of her memories and they're saying it together and it's an equal footing there.
And Lexa even says, she goes, I don't doubt that you will.
Yeah.
Like, I know you will.
Yeah. So that part of it is like, yes, 100%, of course. Yes. But like after that, it's a weird thing. And like, Jess, you were very insightful when you brought it up earlier.
Oh, well, I think our conversation before, it was just like when I hadn't thought so much. I've read A Touch of Ruin twice now. And Laura, you've actually read A Touch of Ruin twice. And I didn't think about it so much, this part, so much with A Touch of Ruin. But then reading the same scene all over again in A Retribution, it reminded me of A Book of Night at the end that, and then in our episode where Laura, you had brought up Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which we also have an episode on that, of the unfair advantage of those who have those memories, and then you not having any, trying to kind of like rebuild or mimic a relationship based on what you know that relationship to be, and not that person who's kind of like recovering and gaining new memories. And I think it's also knowing that Lexa is healing. She clearly had, she was suffering depression. She attempted her first, trigger warning suicide, ended up in the hospital, and then she attempted suicide again, and it happened. And then who she is or who she will be healed won't necessarily be the same person that Persephone knew. So I think it's just interesting that there's this also assumption that the people that we have, relationships with in our life, however somebody's healing journey is, that doesn't mean they're going to be the same person that you want them to be also.
I really love that you said want, because that is such an important thing. It's like, this is what you, and that is something that Hades says. And I think Hecate says too. It's like, no, Persephone, like, this is what you want, and this is because you can't deal with losing somebody. This is because you can't process these feelings. You are being selfish about Lexa. Like, she doesn't want to be here. Like, all of that stuff.
Well, that discussion happens when they're talking about, like, she's in limbo right now. Yeah. It's not what you want. Like, what does Lexa want? And that's a continuous conversation. You brought it up with Sybil. What does Sybil want? And then Hades brings it up when he's working with people for the bargaining, and he's like, okay, that's great, you want that person to live, but like, what does that person want? Like, they're, when the one person wanted his grandmother to like live longer, he's like, okay, but
yeah, it is very interesting. It's very sad. It's very sad thing. Very sad thing. Something that isn't sad is that we are in the last part of this book, and that is the gala, right? This is the last little gala that we have here. We have the official proposal with the ring.
I want to see a ring. I want to see a mock-up of this ring. You know how everybody has like the idea of what they think Feyre's ring is or what Aylin's ring is? Like, I want to know what people think Persephone's ring looks like.
Yeah, it's because it sounds gorgeous. Would like to know. We get Lexa's like dedication, right, for her garden.
Or like memorial garden, yeah.
Yeah, that'll be very sweet. And then we get, as we mentioned earlier, we get the resurrection. But it's the Lexa Sedaris Memorial Garden, a therapy garden for residents of the Halcyon. Will include a magnificent glass-like sculpture. I'm only saying that because glass-like made me chuckle. I was like, what's it going to be? Please tell me. But then the monster is resurrected, and that kind of like puts us again on the like war kind of plot line, which kind of really drives it in. And then this ends with snow. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's snowing in the summer. And we knew that at the end of A Touch of Ruin. A Touch of Ruin. We knew that it was snowing. And Persephone says, oh, like, that's so weird. What does that mean? And at the end of Retribution, or at the end of Ruin, he goes, oh, it means war is coming. And we get that again, but with the added information of, that's Demeter controlling the weather. It's snowing in the middle of summer, and he makes the comment of, oh, the war is coming, and with the internal thought, and you are at the center of it. Like, she doesn't, which is like, I don't know if he was like thinking you as in towards Persephone, or you as in like talking to himself in that, like, oh, you're such an idiot. Or if it was like you as in like an us, like we're at the center of it, because like, they go hand in hand, basically. So, but that's where we are now.
Two things we didn't talk about. We didn't talk about Hades going to visit Aphrodite, which I thought was a very cute kind of scene.
Oh, when he's like, I need help. I'm being a shitty boyfriend.
Yeah, when he's asking for advice. I just thought that was really sweet. I did really enjoy that. And then we did not talk about Persephone's almost sexual assault. I think we can just kind of gloss over that, because that's a myth. Like, that's a myth. So, like, look that up if you are interested in that. But ick taken advantage of by a janitor and somebody that you had shown like nice and a little bit of attention to and kindness to. Gross.
Well, and that's what he said. He said that. And you know what? The biggest unfortunate part about this is that, yeah, it's a myth here, but like that shit happens all the time. Like, huge trigger
all the
warning,
time,
obviously. But like, that happens regularly, which is why so often women are like, you know what we're on like both sides of everything. We're either like really nice because we're like, oh yeah, thanks, no thanks. You know, we try to be pleasant about it because we don't want, you know, we are like in fight or fight mode. We want to like survival. And then on the other end of it, it's like, if you completely disregard something, something or someone of a situation, that's also like, you can't win being, you know, being female. So, you know, and that's, here we are.
And Hades, like, comes in, Persephone, all of it. It doesn't happen, but it is a myth. And Scarlett St. Clair does have the myth in the back of the book. If you're interested, please read about it. It is just not something that we should harp on right now because, why? There's so much other stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Since we're at the end, I know I've been open in my opinion. Do you feel like this needed to be 2 books?
No, this did not need to be 2 books. This could have been just one, maybe kind of thick book. And that would have been fine. I would have had no problem with that because the frustration that I have, minus my frustrations with Persephone, which are consistent from our Touch of Darkness episode, is that I do not like reading the same thing over and over again. I just don't. I know that the fans very much care, where Hades went, but, I don't, I do in his story because he's doing other things. I don't in Persephone's story because she's doing other things. And I trust that it will all circle back around because that's what a good book does to close the plot. So, it could have been one book and that would have been just fine with me.
Yeah, and I know that, we mentioned it at the top of the episode with the author's note, but this was a fan-demand book. I don't think that she had any, from my history of, since I've been following Scarlett since, 2020, there wasn't necessarily, an idea of a Hades POV till fans were like, we really want it, which, I understand. As somebody who would, reread the entire ACOTAR series in a Reese POV, 100%. I totally get it. That's me as a fan. But you also have the Twilight fandoms and the 50 Shades fandoms. Both E.L. James and Stephanie Meyers, they completely wrote the whole series. I haven't read them in Edward and Christian's point of views. So I understand where the fan demand comes from. Again, this is, I'll say, I haven't read those. I don't know if those point of views are adding to the story, if they're giving anything different, or if it's the same exact story, but the pronouns are switched out. Instead of he looked at me, it was I looked at her. So I don't know. And truthfully, I'm not going to go to read them. I had my experiences when I read them, and I don't want those to be altered.
Yeah, that's very well said. That is very well said, because there is an audience for this. Absolutely no question. It is written because of the audience. I am comfortable saying that I am not the audience for this, and that's fine. Yeah. That is so completely fine. I was lukewarm on A Touch of Darkness, and I've been very clear on that. Katie and Carly have kind of become my Greek god lane, and that is completely fine. There is no judgment here. It is just not my cup of tea.
Yeah, same. Especially for this part. I was open about my love for A Touch of Darkness more than Neon Gods, and then we had a reread, and then I was like, wait, and we talked about this before we started recording, who I was as a person and as a reader new to the fantasy genre in 2020 when I started reading this, and who I am as a reader now, as we are in 2022, or two different, as much as I think I'm I'm the same person, I just read different things or look for different things, as we all do. That being said, I don't think this episode, if people are they didn't love it, but we're not saying we loved it, we're not saying we didn't hate it, but I think it's important to know that there's a lot of discourse happening about people having opinions, apparently, right now. We're not, but take the opportunity to read it for yourself. That's a big criticism that I have, with movie reviews. Why would we listen to a critic? That's one critic's opinion, because with any movie review, you could put two people in the room. You could have one person who extremely dislikes it, and you're going to have another person who extremely likes it. Go and formulate your own opinion, because your own personal experience, or just like we talk about consistently throughout the podcast, your own personal and lived experiences are going to contribute to those reading experiences as well.
Just a good example of this from practical real life today. Editor Sam and I went to go see Everything Everywhere All at Once, and he and I were obviously raised very differently. He enjoyed the movie on a very kind of surface level, kind of awesome. I was sobbing. I was sobbing. I was like heaving in the theater. I got out to the car and had a full on breakdown. So everyone's lived experiences are different. How you experience things are different, and everything is for everybody and hits differently. So that is what we are saying here. Just be nice.
Just be nice. Who knew it'd be so hard? But as always, thanks y'all for listening. You can follow us on Instagram, ACOFAE Podcast. We're also both on TikTok, ACOFAE Laura and ACOFAE Jessica. If you feel so kind, please feel free to write some nice reviews and give us a 5-star rating. But we'll talk to y'all soon. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.